Coming up on Super Boothers, Ryan and I discuss failure. We're all afraid of it. We've all experienced it, but it's not as bad as it may seem. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to Super Boothers. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Ismail.
Today we are talking about something that Ismail is very familiar about.
That is just mean. Because I know what you're going to say, that is just not nice.
Today we are talking about failure.
And hopefully by the end of this episode, you will realize that failure is not something to be ashamed of.
Of course, it just means that you've gone through some stuff.
You wear it with a badge of pride.
Like that time you got hit by a bus.
That never happened.
I pushed you.
That never happened. I think you're watching too much Mean Girls.
I love that movie.
And please don't ask me how I knew that reference.
So today I want to talk about an interview that I saw with J.K. Rowling and Oprah.
I love J.K. Rowling.
She is amazing. So what happened was Oprah was in Scotland interviewing J.K. Rowling, and she was pretty much taking her through how, I guess, she became J.K. Rowling.
It's an amazing story.
She got turned down 13 times for the first Harry Potter book.
It's unbelievable to think about that now, but it's actually very common for people that publish books. You get declined like dozens and dozens of times.
Well, I get a kick out of it. I just saw Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. However,
that should be your middle name. Amazing. Right?
Amazing or fabulous. Those are or stay poor. I have a lot of catchphrases on here.
Or I will say this.
I do say that. That's so horrible. Anyways, so pretty much what had come about from it was she was saying how she got turned down by all these people. One of the comments that she got was saying that it was not marketable. It was not mainstream.
I mean, it was even
Harry
worse.
Potter was not mainstream.
Well, if you remember back then, it was about wizardry and witchcraft, and it definitely was not mainstream. A lot of people, I think it got banned in a lot of schools. People didn't really want to promote that book.
That was another thing was I think that right now, like zombies were a big thing. Vampires were a big thing.
Now,
Harry Potter was the first person to kind of like usher in like that genre, really.
Yeah, I love Harry Potter. But what makes the story more interesting is that, and I'm sure she went into this in that interview, I didn't see it, that she was like on welfare and struggling a lot during that time. I think she wrote the whole book in a coffee shop or something like that.
Parts of it, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a single mom raising her daughter, writing the books kind of at the lowest of the low. I think the term that she used was she was the poorest you could have been in Britain without being homeless. Like that's pretty rock bottom.
And now she is the second queen.
Billionaire.
Yeah.
Billionaire author.
How amazing it must feel to go from rock bottom. And I think about a lot of things, like what kept her going. She's got a daughter to feed, but she's putting so much energy into a book that people are saying is not good. So if anybody else was in that position, most people would say, hey, I need to get a job. I got to put food on the table. Forget about this dream.
So Mark Cuban made this comment about having an exit strategy, that if you go into a business and you have an exit strategy, you're not really serious about it. I don't think I've ever had an exit strategy, ever.
But now if you talk to some entrepreneurs, they say...
Except if I were to fall in love with a 60-year-old man and rich man. That's my exit strategy.
But if you talk to some entrepreneurs, they tell you that you shouldn't be taking unnecessary risk. Like Damon John from Shark Tank, who started FUBU, he worked at Red Lobster. While his shirt was being worn by all these celebrities and he was selling a ton of shirts, he still continued to work at Red Lobster. And a lot of people say you don't take that full leap until you have to, right? So it just depends on what school of thought you follow.
So is that why you still work at Red Lobster?
Some people can't take that risk. They got responsibilities, they got bills, they got mortgages, they got people to take care of.
Healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Healthcare is expensive, man.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Unless you're listening to this in Canada, at which point, hey, it's free.
Yeah, so I wonder what makes someone like that. Just imagine being in that position and people telling you this is no good, this is no good. Your daughter's hungry, you're hungry, you got no place to go, and you still don't give up. You don't look for a job to pay your bills. So I don't know. I feel like that's tough. A lot of people would give up.
I think that the way how this kind of applies to our industry is there have been two individuals that I can think of off the top of my mind, and they really know who they are. If you're listening to this, hello. Um, However, they were kind of telling me, listen, I have a great brand. I'm better than, the 15 other people operating in my market. I put out better quality work. Yes, I'm trying to charge, a decent amount of money, a hefty price point. We're talking maybe like $1,500 for 3 hours. And they just, can't compete with the market because it's so saturated. They're like, I know I'm doing everything right. How come I'm not booking? Like, what's the problem here? And, it's really kind of without having to, really know metrics and specific details, it's really hard to kind of hone in on exactly what the problem is. Are you just not advertising? How are people finding you? Like that sort of thing. So I really think that perseverance in itself is just something to be reckoned with, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where you wanted to go with this episode, but to me, I'm thinking I actually had a conversation with someone, without getting into too much detail, he's struggling. There's a lot of things that he is struggling with. And it was just a bad time, and you could tell from this person's, the way they were talking, their face, that they were just down. And for me, that perseverance is what I was trying to communicate to them, is that the people that you admire, whether it's J.K. Rowling or whoever, you admire them for a reason. They overcame things. They got better. They didn't give up. And the story, this person was a basketball fan. So the story that I talked to him about was recently there's a basketball player named Derrick Rose. I don't know if you know him, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
He was the youngest MVP.
Is he related to Malik?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
That's going way back.
Okay.
San Antonio Spurs.
I have a story with his wife, Tiffany. Anyways, keep going.
But Derrick Rose was the youngest MVP in NBA history. He was a superstar. He was going to have an incredible career. He got injured. It was a very bad injury. Took him a year to recover. He came back. He got injured again. Took him another year to recover. Came back, got injured. This went on for like 7 years. He fell off. And just recently, a few weeks ago, this year, he scored 50 points in a game, which is more than he has ever scored. And he was crying, and his teammates were so happy for him because he passed a level that he never had gotten to before.
Even with injuries.
With injuries. And the reason, and I was telling this to my friend, because they are inspired by that. They respect Derrick Rose now. Like, yo, this guy's the man. He didn't give up. He's the man. I like him. But when it comes to doing that yourself, it's hard. So for me, I get inspired by thinking about these people and these stories when I'm in those positions and trying to use it as fuel to get through them and get over them. Because you really find out who you are when you go through those things. Like, do you just bend over and give up? Or do you continue fighting through and come out better on the other side?
Bend over and give up.
I love that. Out of that whole story,
that's what I pick out of it.
That Ryan got was bend over.
If I
Have you met my friend Ben Dover?
Thank you. Enough with the dad jokes. No, so there have been times where I believe, hit rock bottom, I think, without being homeless. Whenever I was doing floral and decor, I remember I put a lot of money into one bridal show. Because back then, that's really all you had. I mean, the internet almost really didn't exist yet. I mean, it existed, just not for the purposes that we use it for today. I put a lot of money into doing one bridal show, and I paid a lot in staff. I paid a lot in equipment, and I remember I only had $100 at the end of that show, and that was enough money to take my team out for dinner that night. And I literally I've always been a gambler to begin with.
Yeah.
Shocker.
I've seen him at the casino, ladies and gentlemen.
You've
it's not
seen
a pretty
me
sight.
Nothing at 2:30 in the morning, going for a $6.99 steak dinner. No.
You know how someone's a real gambler? They only tell you about when they win. That's the telltale
I tell
sign.
you when I lose.
Yeah,
I also
maybe
win a lot, though.
3 weeks after the fact.
I do. This is true. I also win a lot, though. But for the record, in Photo Booth Expo 2018.
That was a bad.
I lost a lot of money.
That was a bad
I
day.
lost a lot of money
That was
that
a
day.
bad day.
But I made it up the next week, so that's all right. But anyways, I think that first of all, you learn a couple things whenever you're failing. You learn who your friends are, first of all. But I also think that you learn more about yourself whenever you do fail, because there are times where if you're just like pulling through, you are confident in your product, you know that you're doing a good thing, someone will eventually book it. Now, the question of whether or not you have the financial means to hold you over until someone makes that decision, that's another story. And I think that's something that people struggle with because, again, they have families, they have kids, they have financial commitments that you can't always just run off and, do whatever it is you want to do if you don't have the money to back it up with.
Now, failure is one thing, but I also feel like the fear of failure is also something worth talking about where
I think a lot of it's manufactured.
But it affects a lot because, for example, a lot of people complain about boothers undercharging or, the prices are so
Stop
low.
whining.
And I think a lot of those people do that. They charge so low because of a fear of failure.
Yeah.
So
or it's a self-esteem issue like me because historically I have always undercharged what I'm actually worth. And I know that.
That could be.
I know that.
But to me, I think it feels better to be out there working. Like they're not as focused on the fact that they're making enough money. They're like, oh, I'm working. I got some gigs. I'm making a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. At least I'm not failing. So that fear of failure can affect you in a lot of different ways. And I think that's responsible for a lot of people lowering the bar in the industry. It's just because they don't want to fail. So they just get by in the tooth and nail and don't fail.
And I think I've said this on the show before. My favorite documentary is Joan Rivers, A Piece of Work. And her manager and this actually came out whenever she was still living. Her manager at the time said, you have to get struck by lightning. And whenever you're in the entertainment industry, you have to be, it's whoever's hot, who's now, what's going on, who's hot, who's not. To get struck by lightning, you have to stand out in the rain. And nobody could stand out in the rain longer than Joan Rivers. So actually, again, one of my friends, Melissa, she made I was really depressed one day. I was losing a lot of business. We did an episode on this a while back. And I was feeling really down on myself. Like, what is going on? Why am I losing big pieces of business that I have historically always had? What is the problem here? And it wasn't just one. It was like 5, like back to back to back. Those 5 clients represent probably about $150,000 for the year, them alone.
It's a big chunk of revenue.
So that's my thing is like, what is my problem? And, I have never won an award. I have never, so like, how like the Knot does like best of?
Mm-hmm.
Never got any of that. I've never got any Knot Hall of Fame. I've never done any of that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why haven't I done that? My clients were just kind of at a certain level. They didn't write reviews online. Like, that's not my client. My client doesn't do that. However, just working long enough and consistently and being booked and being wanted, that should be the reward enough. Like, if I'm probably going to get some sort of lifetime achievement award, I hope. But
Well, I think
like that's the type of person that I am.
Right.
Like, I'm not the one note. I'm not, hey, you get best picture, you get this one year, and then we never hear from you 5 years from now. I'm Meryl Streep.
Well, she's won a lot of awards.
I'm Susan Lucci. That's me, Susan Lucci.
you don't want to be Vanilla Ice. You want to be Eminem. The longevity is what
Exactly.
You're after.
Like that's literally what. But I've never set out to be one or the other. That's just the type of person that I ended up being.
Well, I think people go after those awards because they think
I'm Tony Shalhoub. I am in every single movie and TV show.
Kevin Bacon.
Perfect.
You're Kevin Bacon. I think people don't go after that. They feel that getting those things
Morgan Freeman
gets them more clients. It's more of a reputation thing. So it's just a different thought process. You feel like you don't need it. They feel like it makes it easier for them to book people. So,
which it very well could be. My friend Melissa, she just got the Not Best of. She's not Hall of Fame. she just plays that game because it is a game. It is, there is a type of millennial bride that will go in the knot, that will see those badges, that will love it for what it is, and they'll book you because of it.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There is 1,000 reviews of people saying that they like you. I get it. I'm just not playing that game, and that's my fault because I'm talking to you people right now, taking time out of my life to record this podcast.
What about, are there any benefits to failure? Like, should you be that scared to death of it that you avoid it, or do you think that it's worth plunging into it? And if you fail, you fail, but at least you get something
I think
out of
it
it.
builds character. Like that's the thing is, it's a little bit like. Actually, have you seen the Mr. Rogers documentary?
Not yet.
But you've heard of like the Mr. Rogers effect, like
Yep.
how he was the one that told everyone, "Oh, you're someone, you're, entitled or whatever," and he actually clarified that in his Harvard commencement speech. It's like that's not what I meant, and he clarified like what the whole purpose of it was is that you as a human being are entitled to being happy, just like the pursuit of happiness.
Great movie.
What our well, I was talking about our Constitution.
Oh
but
yeah, that too.
if you want to talk about Will Smith, we can. However, you as a human being are valid enough and should at least be loved. Like that's kind of what he was getting at. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is just because you fail doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're not working hard enough. It doesn't, I mean, bad things happen to good people. And I just think that it's not how you fall, it's really how you recover from it. Yes, you can choose to be the victim. Oh, how sad, woe is me. Or you can get up and go back to work again.
Yeah.
If you have a bad event, I've had a really horrible event. And
Just one?
Well, no.
I've had a couple.
There was one gigantic one I was doing decor for. We were late for. Everything went wrong. I needed to give them a big refund, which I was okay with, I guess. But at the same time, I think a big thing in our industry is you're only as good as your last event.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, if you have a bad event, you can sulk on it. You can pick apart everything that went wrong. Or you can just go about it the next day and really just try not to do it again and just learn from your mistakes. I think that's the big problem is whenever you repeat the same one over and over and over again. Kind of like my relationships. No, I'm kidding.
I will not touch that one. But I think, again, going back to something I hinted at before, at least for me, and I would probably say it's the case for most people, those people that you admire most out there, those tycoons, even people in our industry that you admire most, everything looks great, right? Oh, they're doing so well. I guarantee you they've all experienced their own failures. Even people, let's say Elon Musk, which is like the godfather now, he's doing everything.
Smoking weed on, never mind.
On a different podcast.
Yeah.
We'll try to get him on this one. No.
He's available now.
He started SpaceX, a rocket company. And I think the story goes that he only had enough money for 3 launches. And he had to prove that his technology would work. So he fired the first one, failed. Second one, failed. Third one, that's the last one he could do. The rocket crashed and burned. And I remember reading the book about this, and he had to walk out to his team afterwards. And everyone is so defeated because they knew this is it. And he would say, he basically told everyone that we're not giving up. The mission is too important for us to give up. And I expect everyone back tomorrow. Let's go do it. So he had to find a way.
Get to work.
Yeah, he had to find a way to get more money. And I think this is a part of his life where he slept on people's couches. Like he lost everything. He lost everything. But got some money together, did another launch, and it worked. And now SpaceX is like a $12 billion company. And the story that he really focused on was after the failure where you were rock bottom and you walk out, you find out who you are, you find out who your team is. And You could argue that they did better because of that failure. They got even more motivated to not get to that point again. They figured it out, and the next one worked. So, and that's one thing that's on my vision board, Elon Musk, with a quote that he said in an interview on 60 Minutes that said, "I don't ever give up unless I'm dead," basically. So he says, "I'll never quit unless I die."
I need a vision board. So what I want everyone to do is go to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/superboothers, and tell us about your biggest failure.
Don't be ashamed.